Welcome to Break Away from the Rat Race, a podcast series to awaken your entrepreneurial spirit and help you achieve financial freedom. On our show, you'll learn about investments and how to create passive income. Let's get started with your host, Eric Martel.
Well, welcome to Break Away from the Rat Race. And then today I have Bobby Sharma, who is a very well-known real estate investor, and I would say even mentor in the Bay Area. Is very well-known. He's helping a lot of people. And so, Bobby, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll get started.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for inviting me. You and I, we've known each other for quite some time. But yeah, I'm a full-time real estate investor, a part-time coach, but mainly I focus on different types of real estate investing. But yeah, I've been in the Bay Area for quite some time, and I want to talk a little bit about my own story. I came here as an immigrant. I came as a student to go to college, and but I was very fortunate that at the age of 24, after I graduated college, I was working in Southern California. I accidentally came across what is now termed as house hacking, but I didn't know that it was house hacking at that time. I just knew that I
needed to do that.
It was out of desperation because
Yeah.
I had purchased a house with the purpose of getting two roommates to help pay with the rent and the mortgage, but it just happened that I came across a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and I put an ad in the local paper, and the phone rang the next day and the following day. But long story short, at the age of 24, I still didn't have my green card. I was still working for a company that was sponsoring me, but ended up with a house. And then, fortunately, the two roommates were, really nice people, got along great with them. And they basically paid for my mortgage, maybe not the taxes and insurance. Maybe I came out of pocket for that, but for several years, I continued doing that.
So what did you study at university?
I was a computer science major.
Okay, computer science. Wow. So lots of opportunities here in the Bay Area, definitely. And then at 24, when you bought that house, did you consider yourself? First of all, I think it was a big jump. 24 years old, buying. And when did you buy?
I was this was late.
People don't have to make the calculation.
I'm old, but no, I bought it in the late 80s.
Okay.
90, in that time frame.
So the market was not quite crazy yet, but it was getting there, right?
It was getting there, but it was not crazy. Yeah.
So at 24, when you bought that house, you bought it were you thinking, hey, this is a great investment, or I need a place to live, and I'd like to have somebody subsidize my rent?
Well, it happened such that I was actually renting a room from somebody else, and he basically had a similar situation where he had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I was renting a room. Unfortunately, what he did, he started, when I first moved into his house, it was just the three of us, him and another gentleman but after a while, I noticed that he was renting out the garage and he was renting out the living room, and it just got a little crazy. So I was like,
the doghouse, everything.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, and housing even back then was in such demand that he was able to get away with it, right? I mean, he was renting to students who were crashing in the living room, and then the garage. So I'm like, this is a little bit too much of a very busy place for me. I can't sleep well at night. So I want to find a similar situation. So
Okay.
on a Sunday afternoon, I was driving. I saw a for sale sign in the neighborhood, and I went to the real estate agent. It was a lady who said, "Yep, I could." I said, "I don't have my green card yet. I'm in the process." And she didn't care. She goes, "We'll get you a loan." And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I bought it for 115,000. Put
Wow.
20% down back then.
You can't get anything right now for that. That's for sure.
Nothing, not even a garage,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
people are doing ADUs for 150.
exactly.
So yeah,
150, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So what was your parents and were they investor? Were they that kind of people, or were they more like traditional, like my parents, very traditional in their upbringing?
Eric, I think they were like your parents in the sense that we never talked about money, we never
Yeah.
talked about investments. I never, I never quite. They didn't teach me about. My dad was very conservative. He was an accountant, and so by nature he was
And he
all.
didn't like to talk about money.
Yeah, he
Wow.
didn't. He didn't like. He
Wow.
was his money was in. He did own one house that he lived and we all grew up in, but back in
Yeah.
India. But he never bought any investment properties, and he didn't buy any land, and but he did okay in that one house, but he never expanded. And but he was always in in like CDs. That
Okay.
CDs
Yeah. Yeah.
were his big thing.
Yeah.
And but no, I didn't learn anything about investing from my parents. Uh,
Wow.
I look at your kids, and I'm so proud of what you have been able to teach your kids,
Mm-hmm.
and they're part of the business. And so I
Yeah.
think more parents need to be helping their kids learn more about investing. So
Yeah.
I'm thrilled whenever I meet the three of you. I'm like, you know what, this is great.
But that's true. I mean, for me, like my parents, they never talked about money, and when they were talking about money, they were screaming about money. So there was always it was fighting because there was not enough money,
Yeah.
and so that's my experience of that, which is not a positive experience, obviously. And you always learn from your parent. So either by imitating what they're doing or going against what they're doing.
Exactly.
And so
I went against. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I kind of went and said, well, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I better do something about it. And that's when I went into actuarial science and all of that. But as you mentioned, with children, I mean, I didn't want them to be in the same situation as me. So we had a very open conversation about money when they were very young. Even Aunt One and was really involved in when Lynn opened her low carb grocery store. I mean, I think he was like 7 or 8 years old or something like that, and he was involved in the store. He wanted to do the cash register, and he wanted to do the stocking the shelves
Very
and
nice.
all of that. So
Very
and
nice.
and we shared with him kind of like what the numbers were like, what that yeah, we're buying at that price, we're selling it at this price, this is the rent of this is
Yep.
so that they're familiar that money comes in but it also goes out all kinds of different ways.
Exactly.
And then so I think this is very important, and have a
Very
calm conversation about that and let
right.
them know what's
You
going on.
you could teach a class on to parents about how to get their kids involved in
Yeah.
learning about investing. And I see a lot of kids coming out of college that are they're savvy, they're smart, but they
Yeah,
don't have the financial understanding of budgeting,
that's right.
earning extra income. So these very, very important principles that you've shared with your kids.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do something with other parents as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. No, that'd be very good. Because, yeah, and I agree with you. I think this is, I mean, when you go to university or college, I mean, this is one of my kind of pet peeve is that they go there, but you go there to basically learn to do a job, to get a salary. You don't go there, to learn anything about how to take care of yourself, take care of your finances, and then how to It's not about that. It's about getting a job. And then people don't, they don't always realize that. They expect that it would be a broader, even like in general studies and stuff like that, they would be a little bit broader about kind of how to do budgeting, how to keep track of your budget, and then, move on from there. And,
Absolutely.
just basic finance. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then, so when was so you had the house in the 80s, you rent and all of that, and you have a couple of tenants, and then what happened?
Then I got married, and we ended up getting out of that house. We sold that house.
Yeah.
And then I moved up to San Bruno. My job was in San Bruno, and we rented in Daly City.
Yeah.
And then I noticed that the place that I was renting in Daly City, they would jack up our rent every year by about 12%. And I'm like, this is crazy. So we had saved up a little bit of money, and we bought a house in Fremont. And my job at that time was in San Jose. But even at that time, Eric, this is 2000. This is around March or April of 2000. I bought my house in Fremont. And it just happened that the house was structured. We didn't have any kids, but the way the house was laid out, I could take the master bedroom, I could block it out, and it became an independent suite. It became like almost like an in-law unit, like an ADU, but inside the envelope of the house.
Yeah.
And I hired a handyman, and he came in. He created a new entrance. We put lighting. We put a little kitchenette, and sure enough, I put an ad. It was a relatively big house, so. Yeah. I put in the master bedroom and the bath were pretty decent size for like a single person. And so I put an ad, and sure enough, people lined up. And so even when I was married, I was trying to figure out how to make extra money to subsidize my mortgage, right? And so we kept, that worked out really well. We had, I think in the 7 years that I owned that house, I only had one tenant that I ever had problems with.
Yeah.
They were mostly high-tech people. They would work long hours. They'd come, and they had their own separate entrance. Yeah. It was completely private. I had internet. I had cable for them. They had their own bathroom. They had their own kitchen. They had, in hindsight, it was probably, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But we were young, and me and my wife, and we were traveling a lot. My job required me to travel a lot, so we enjoyed, and that money that came from the rental kind of paid for our entertainment and travel, and paid off some loans and all that. Yeah. But we were able to very successfully manage that. Unfortunately, in 2007, I did go through a divorce, so we had to sell the house.
Yeah.
So from 2007 to 2010, I was renting again. Right? Okay. I was back to renting, and that's when the market went down significantly. Yeah. So luckily, I sold near the peak, and then I rented. But in 2010, the prices got down so low that I'm like, you know what? I got to step back into this game.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I went and bought some REOs in San Jose. I went to Oakland. We started bidding at the auction, the courthouse steps. We did a few fix and flips. I found a contractor but in 2010, I was living up in Emeryville.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there were no meetups or any kind of real estate events taking place in Emeryville, Oakland area. They were all in San Francisco or in San Jose. And I would come back from work. I'd drive down to San Francisco. I'd take BART to San Francisco, or I'd drive down to San Jose.
Yeah.
So one day I said, you know what, let me just start a meetup in Oakland. And that's how it all got started. I invited, three people showed up to the first meeting, and then, it slowly grew. But really what I wanted to do was surround myself with folks like yourself that are really, kind of immersed in real estate. They were doing deals, they were buying homes, but the market wasn't crazy. It was still doom and gloom.
Yeah.
In 2011, it was, you turn on the news and it was all about foreclosures
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
you know, um,
It was a cleanup phase.
exactly.
So you were going around 2007, 2010. You were going to meetups, and then what were you getting out of the meetup? Did you already know that you wanted to spend more in the real estate side because of the downturn in the economy? You want to take advantage of that?
Yeah. So a couple of things happened in 2000. I didn't start to go to the meetups till 2010.
Hmm.
And then what happened is I was working for a very stable company, very nice company, Cisco,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I was doing great. And then I decided to jump to a startup, and then I did okay at that startup, and then I went to another startup, and that startup did not work out.
Yeah.
The second startup did not work out. So I was actually in 2011, or no, in 2012. I found myself out of work,
Hmm.
and even though I knew, sooner or later I'll find work, but that feeling of being dependent on a corporate paycheck,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna ever be in this situation again. I will try to protect myself a little bit better financially, and not be dependent on that one single paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So,
true. Because when you're working for people are afraid that well, if I go on my own and do my own business, then I could lose everything, or
yeah,
blah blah blah. But at least you have some warning. You know where the direction of the company, and you say, okay,
exactly,
well, I have to either double down, or I have to do something, or I have to find an alternative. And
exactly.
so if you work for somebody, you have no idea how they're managing the company. You have no idea if they kind of ran out of cash, or they're going to pull the plug or whatever, especially a startup.
Yeah, startups.
Yeah.
The whatever the next round of funding was supposed to come in didn't come in,
Yeah.
and so I was at the mercy of some third party. So I said, listen, I gotta figure out how to generate revenue on my own, and real estate. It's either real estate or the stock market. That's usually
Yeah.
where people go. And I was not comfortable with the stock market, with all the volatility and all the uncertainty. And
Yeah.
again, if Jim Cramer says something crazy
Exactly.
on television, my stock gets affected. I didn't want that. So
Yeah. And this is even worse than working for a company, because the
exactly.
financials could be good,
Yeah,
but then there's something in the news that say, oh, I don't like the CEO or whatever, or
yeah,
or some kind of issue, and then
exactly. You
stock
get
goes
wiped
down,
out. You get wiped
or
out.
the econ, so
Yeah.
yeah, crazy.
It was a crazy market. And so
Yeah.
then I said, listen, real estate is something that has worked for hundreds of years, and so I'm going to dabble a little bit. So I started buying. I would repair and fix them up. Sometimes I do the work myself. Sometimes I
Mhm.
get a handyman. Sometimes I get a contractor.
Yeah.
But I was doing all this, and luckily I was able to find another job. So finding the job was, there was a downtime. There was about a 4 or 5 months downtime,
Yeah.
but it was not like I was desperate or anything. But that downtime allowed me to think about planning for my future. That in fact, now that I look back, it was like a blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah.
The, Otherwise I'd be on that rat race. I'd be like a hamster in a, and just be turning in the corporate world. But I said, listen, I'm gonna retire before 50. I'm gonna build a portfolio of rental properties, and I'm gonna collect this much from each rental properties, enough to cover my expenses. And then I put a plan together, and slowly but surely, the plan included fix and flips and rental properties. Buy some fix and flips and build rental properties.
Hmm.
And at that time, there was no concept of turnkey properties.
Yeah.
But now that I look back, like I would have gone all turnkey properties, right?
Yeah.
If those were available back then, because it makes so much sense. You don't have to deal with contractors. You don't have to deal with the city. You don't have to deal with all the headaches that are involved in finding the property.
Mhm.
And you get a turnkey property. Pretty much all of the numbers are laid out for you.
Yeah.
You simply get a loan and you build your passive income portfolio.
And everything is organized for you. I mean, you have the property management in place, the house is fixed up for rent, somebody identify a good market for you and all of that. And, so yeah, there's no surprises.
There's no surprises. Yeah. So, but we are very fortunate that in this day and age, turnkey properties are available.
Yeah.
People have options. People have the ability to do a lot of research online, and the loans are available, and the property management companies are more technologically
Yeah.
savvy. There's more platforms, software platforms out there. So being a, a a landlord now is so much easier compared to like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think,
And as an investor too, like, like we're doing, these properties out of state. And I mean, we wouldn't have been able to do that like, 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean, pretty much all the documents are signed electronically and exchanged electronically. We have, like, everybody has a phone, like the camera phone everywhere. So, we have the realtor walk through, the inspector, send us pictures electronically of all kinds of things. So
exactly.
yeah, we wouldn't have been able to do that kind of stuff.
And
20 years ago.
to be able to leverage and get a loan
Yeah.
and put 20% down or 25% down and build your cash flow. Like
Yeah.
I tell, and I'm sure you do as well, to all your busy professional friends and clients is,
Mhm.
listen, why go through the brain damage of doing a remote fix and flip
Yeah.
or remote rental when all you have to do is get a loan and start building your passive income portfolio, and the tenant is paying down your mortgage.
Yeah.
You get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And
You
so
kind of have to look at your resources, right? So I have a lot of money. I have a good job, so I W-2S. I can get a loan. I don't have anybody to do contracting in wherever it is, Memphis,
wherever, yeah,
Cleveland, whatever.
yeah,
I don't have time to manage that. I don't have time to fly there. So so that's why the turnkey is pretty good. So I have the money. I can go and buy the property and build my passive income up until comes a point where now I can do this full time. I can quit my job, and then at that time, yeah, go ahead and do
yeah,
the burst strategy or do your own rehab and stuff like
yeah.
that. But
I hear a lot of stories. I mean, the Burr has been talked about on a lot of media and
Mhm.
social media and so on. But Burr comes with a lot of challenges in
Yeah,
its own, right? I mean, there's more points of failure in a Burr
yeah,
than in a turnkey. In a turnkey, you have a finished product. It's
yeah,
kind of like you can either go to the dealership and buy a car, or you can build a car from the auto salvage, and put a car together,
yeah.
get the transmission, and
That's a good analogy. I mean, this is yeah.
so
So there's more risk, definitely. If you're going to do it yourself, there's more risk, and there's also a longer time period for you. By the time you acquire the property, all the way till you basically have a tenant in there. That could take, if you don't have a solid team on the ground, it could take 6 months to a year to get that done.
yeah,
For us, I mean, we're able to do that in 4 months
yeah,
because we have a dedicated team on the ground, and they know exactly what to do. They know what tile to put in. They know what paint color. They know everything.
yeah.
So yeah, so
Building
we
that,
do that
and,
very
and I'm sure, Eric, like for you to build that dedicated team, it
yeah.
didn't happen overnight, right? It took you a
That's
while.
right. Yeah, it took a long time to find the right people, and then even after you find the right people, is to kind of like come up with the process, a way to communicate, a way to to really explain what we're looking for and all of that, and have everybody on board.
Yep.
And we're still tweaking, and I'm sure it's the same for you and your team too. You still want to tweak your process, tweak your system and stuff like that. And sometimes a neighborhood worked, and now all of a sudden, oh, that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so, mm,
So no, I'm a firm believer in what you're doing, and and we've partnered up in the past and in the
mhm,
future. But yeah, I tell people, look, real estate. I'm not saying put all your money in real estate, but if you can't afford to buy in the Bay Area, and you're not going to cash flow in the Bay Area, so think about if you're starting out, you're in your early 30s, and you're working for a good company, and you've saved up a little bit of money.
mhm.
Owning real estate, it should be part of your strategy,
Exactly.
and over time, rents will generally go up. If whatever rent you were paying 10 years ago, it's way greater now. Whether it's in Kansas City or Cleveland
Mhm.
or Phoenix or Dallas, whatever city, rents will generally go up. So real estate is a way for you to fight inflation. It's a way for you to secure your future. There's so many advantages, and it's
Yeah.
one of the few things that the government gives you a break on your taxes if you do it right.
Yeah.
So count
And just
count.
depreciation as well, right? I mean, depreciation offsetting your income. I mean, this is very important. I mean, a lot of people say, well, I could invest. There was actually an article over the weekend about, hey, how to invest in real estate without owning a home. So, I mean, there are ways to do that, obviously, that I like and that I think you like as well.
I do.
But they were really pushing. I mean, this is who we're the tide that we're against. We're against the big financial institution that wants you to give them their money and then do that. They
Yeah,
invest it for you. And so they were pushing a lot of the REITs, for example, and the mutual fund that invests in real estate and all of that. But when you invest in those, you don't get all the benefits that you would get if you had the property yourself. You don't get
I,
the depreciation that would offset your cash flow.
exactly.
I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah, depreciation is a big factor, and
Mhm.
so there's a lot of advantages to owning directly, or maybe in some kind of a way where you get maybe a syndication, or maybe
Yeah,
directly. So, or maybe doing notes. That's
yeah,
another option. So,
yeah. So I think that's a good way. Like private money lending, I think it's a good way. You have a solid revenue stream. So we have a lot of people that they're lending to us, and we're sending them a check every month or transfer money every month for their interest. That's a pretty good way of doing it. It's better than any annuity product that I know. We get a better return, and you still have your money at the end, as
exactly.
opposed to an annuity, where you don't have any of your money.
Nothing, nothing.
You try to survive as long as possible to make it
Exactly.
worth it. So that's a good way. Joint venture, or also like partnership and syndication
Sure.
and all of that. So
Yeah.
these are also good methods.
Yep.
So
Those
we
are
have
great
people,
methods.
as you know, I mean, we did some of these multifamilies as well,
Yeah.
and we're working with some investors on that.
Those were great properties. I mean,
Yeah,
I think you did really well. Identifying, they weren't too big, they weren't too small. They were just a
yeah,
sweet spot for getting started, and there's enough of a value add in those properties for you to see some nice returns. So yeah, your investors would, I'm, like you mentioned in the email, you were able to fund it all, and
yeah.
it's a benefit for the investors, and it's great for you as well. So
Yeah. So
good.
which market are you invested right now? So you have a big portfolio. I mean, I've actually, before we go to that, I want to know kind of, was there anything? So you go from house hacking to, like major real estate developer and
Yeah.
investor. There must have been like a change in behavior and a change in like skills that you didn't have, or what was that change in that you had to go through?
Yeah. The biggest, as as I started to hang around people that were far more intelligent, far more sophisticated than I was in their investment strategies, things like seller financing, things like
Mhm.
syndications,
Yeah.
things like remote properties, Section 8,
Yeah.
properties that cash flow very well. So I started to dabble in those. In fact, I actually had a gentleman come and present at my meetup on mobile home parks. I was always interested in mobile home parks, and he's like, "Yeah, I've got a fund, and I own like 4 or 5 mobile home parks." He came and presented. This is 5 years ago, and I ended up investing with him. I liked the idea of renting out the lot and
Yeah.
not maintaining the
Yeah.
mobile home.
Yeah.
Uh, and one day, after I had done my investment, they were based out of San Francisco. I was just having lunch with them and kind of catching up on the investment and all that. And they explained that they were having challenges with finding an asset manager because they were still too small to have a full-time asset manager, but they needed one. And so I said, I'll volunteer. Look, I'm an investor. You don't need to pay me. I want to learn. I'll become your asset manager. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yep. And they're like, wow, that's great because we do need an asset manager for 4 of our mobile home parks. One was in Ohio, Southern Illinois, Virginia, and Wyoming.
Mhm.
So basically, they made me an asset manager. So I was dealing with property managers and some of the operational issues like collections. There were problems with tenants that they'd bring up to me, or a tree would fall, or there was a big storm and the water was piling up, and so we needed to do grading, and so I had to get contractors to provide bids for grading. There was a septic tank that needed to be replaced. So all those issues, there was criminal activities on some of the properties in Southern Illinois. So I started to deal with that, and
Yeah.
and it was purely, no compensation, nothing, but I was eager to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did that for a while, and that prepared me to become a better, maybe Section 8 type of a landlord. I got to see like sort of the lower end of the market. So again, somebody spoke about Section 8 property that's at my event, and I ended up kind of working with them. I became their first private money lender, and we grew that
Mhm.
portfolio. When I first met with them, they were at 110 doors, and we grew that portfolio to about 600 doors now.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a partner in their company. We've now started to syndicate Section 8 properties.
Mhm.
So we just successfully launched our first syndication. We were able to raise money from
Okay.
accredited investors.
Yeah.
So that worked
And that
out.
was that's a multifamily, or is it like a
I've done multifamily, but this particular syndication was a Section 8 single family homes.
single family? Okay. So a whole portfolio of single family home. Oh,
Exactly. We took a bunch of single family homes, put a 506B around it, an
yeah.
LLC around it, and really generous returns to our investors. So very secure,
Mhm.
but that was one thing that so in 2019, the biggest accomplishments were the I did a multifamily syndication in Minneapolis. We
Yeah.
successfully raised money for that one. I did the syndication for Section 8 properties. We did our first fund, and now we're on our second and third fund already. So that's working well. I also got involved in tax lien properties. Uh,
Okay.
we were buying in bulk. We were
Mhm.
buying tax lien properties, and that has worked out really well. So these are all partnerships, just like you and me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
sort of getting together, grabbing a cup of coffee, and penciling out a plan and executing on that plan.
Mhm.
And then obviously with Better Turnkey and with Martel Turnkey, we partner on that as well. And so
Mhm.
we want to do education,
Yeah.
uh, and you're a big partner in that. We want to educate our members on what to watch out for, what to be to prepare them for the experience of being a landlord.
Yeah.
Even though we take care of a lot of the headaches, they still need to be aware of it.
That's right.
So educating them is a big kind of a goal for 2020 as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think this is, yeah, it is important to make people aware. And this is why we spend a lot of time, doing podcasts and writing articles and meeting people. And we want them to be prepared for the experience, because it is a shift. And that's what I was kind of like getting to. And one of my favorite things is that, it's a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Exactly.
And that's kind of like that. I mean, you work your life, and somebody's basically telling you what to do, and now all of a sudden is like, now you're the boss. Now you decide what you do next, and so that's a little bit of a challenge. But you're also responsible for a lot of things,
Yep.
and you have to be aware that is it the kind of lifestyle that you want
Yep.
to be a landlord. So we do have some people that bought some single family rentals from us, and they realized through that experience, and it was a relatively cheap experience. They bought one or two houses, so $20,000 down, and then to realize that, what, I'm not really the landlord type person, and then instead they do private money lending, where
Sure.
they're getting less return, but they're getting a good return. They still
Good
have their
country
cash.
return.
It's very much more liquid than a single family rental.
Yep.
And now with some of the properties that we're doing, the multifamilies, so we have some people that are there for long term. So a lot of the syndication, they want to flip after 5 years. They basically sell the property after 5 years, and then everybody get their money. You have to do it again. You have to find another project. But for the multifamilies that we're doing, we have an option. Our intention is to keep that apartment building. So the investors that are with us, and we normally have like 2 or 3 or 4 investors on that. So it's not a syndication, but just a couple of investors that we have a relationship with. And then these people have an opportunity to stay with us long term and get the cash flow instead of having to redo another syndication later on. So again, our game is about cash flow. It's about passive income, and I think the same for you. And that's why everything that we're trying to do, the people that we talk to, that's what they're interested in. They're interested in that passive income.
Absolutely. A lot of people, including me, and I'm a big believer in passive. I'll take passive income over active income any day. So
Yeah.
I like the private money lending. I like the rental properties, that turnkey properties. But I'm as I get older, and I'm sure for you as well, value of time starts to increase
Yeah. That's right.
versus when you're in your 30s and your 20s and mid. For me now, I need to free up my time to do the things that I've always wanted to do, right? Whether it's travel, whether it's being with the family, whether it's working on special projects. But what passive income allows me to do is to have that luxury of whatever I want to do. So it
Yeah.
frees up my time. Um, the main thing I want to remind your listeners and your viewers is you got to plan for that. Like I planned for this,
Mm.
over a decade ago,
Yeah.
right? To
Yeah.
get to this point, and I'm sure you did as well, right?
Yeah.
So you can't plan for it when you think you want free time.
Yeah.
You got to plant the seed. You got to get your financials right. You got to make sure you have the right aptitude, and make sure you get into the right deals. And then when you will then come to a point where you go, okay, now I can take the foot off the gas pedal and go off and do other things that I've always wanted to do. So
yeah, and I think you and this is probably one of the reasons why you did your. So I think in 2010, this is when you started your own meetup in up in Emeryville.
2011, yeah.
2011, yeah.
Yeah.
So you obviously always had the inclination that you wanted to help people, and also you were hoping also obviously that people that were also savvy investors would also show up, and then you kind of share in the knowledge, right?
Yeah, Eric, you're 100% right. It was first give. I made it free. I made it where it was really like a place for them to come and share.
Yeah.
And then out of those, I ended up meeting a few people who helped me, and now I help other people. One lady came over a couple of months ago to my meetup, and she just gave me a huge hug, and I'm like, "Wow, what's going on? What happened?" She goes, "Listen, this thing that you told me about, I invested in it, and now 1 year later, that investment is going to pay for my kid's college.
Oh, wow.
Her kid was going to go to Berkeley, and she goes, that investment is now going to fully pay off my kid's college expenses." So she goes, if I hadn't run into you, if I hadn't done what you told me to do, I would be struggling, but now I'm all set. So, she was very grateful. She's very kind. But we that's what we do. We're yes, it is a business, but we want to be transparent. We want to be
Yeah, yeah.
upfront and help each other. Yeah.
And now you have more than just one meetup now. You have meetups kind of all over the Bay Area. Do you want to tell a little bit more
Yeah.
about where these meetups are, how many people show up, and
Yeah, and I was very fortunate. I run several meetups. So we meet in San Francisco, San Mateo, San Jose, and now San Ramon. So I wanted to get to where my members were. Traffic is bad right now in the Bay Area.
yeah.
So instead of them trying to go from, Pleasanton to San Francisco, I said, I'll bring the speakers out to where you live and we'll meet. So on a Monday, we typically meet in San Francisco, Tuesday, San Mateo, Wednesday, San Jose. And then now into 2020, we're going to start meeting in San Ramon.
Mm-hmm.
And I get anywhere from 60 to 160 people. It just depends on the topic and depends on the event details. But from 60 to 160 is what I get. But in 2020, we're going to start doing a few more events, some more very focused on turnkey properties. For example, I'm going to start doing a regular event on turnkey properties. And obviously you're going to be part of that. But the goal is to educate our investors, to allow them to get started and provide a support system so that they don't feel alone in the journey, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So if they know that there's somebody that they can call, there's a challenge, they can pick up the phone and call. So we that's what we want to do.
Yeah, that's what I found about the community. I participate in a number of meetups, and obviously I go to yours as well on a regular basis. And that's what I found is that the community is very accepting, very helpful to one another, and it's not. I mean, you would go in other kind of types of meetings, and it'd be kind of you feel like it's the competition. But in this case, I never feel like it's a competition. I mean, you and I are both invest in Cleveland, for example, and we're not competitors in any way. So we just and then we share about kind of like with neighborhood. Oh, you're going that neighborhood. Okay, yeah, we're over here and stuff like that. And so we share ideas and all of that. So that's what I really like about the community. And if you're getting started in real estate, I mean, going to these meetups, meeting people that are interested in the same topic that can help you, or they're a little bit ahead of you, or maybe they're a little bit behind you, and then you can help them out and share your knowledge. I think that's this is what that community is like. I mean, I really like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a culture of abundance. There's plenty for everybody.
Plenty for everybody.
So yeah, so this is great. The other thing I wanted to say is also that, I mean, having a plan, I think you're right. I mean, this is very critical to actually say, this is what I'm going to focus on, and then having a plan, selecting the market, selecting the team, and how you're going to acquire your portfolio of rental and how you're going to achieve that.
Yep.
And when I look at your timeline, obviously you 10 years, I mean, this is phenomenal. This is not a very long period of time to get from, 0 to 1,000,
Yeah.
0 to, yeah. So there is hope. So if you're like in the 30, 40, 50 and stuff like that, and you say, oh, I won't have time to do this, and I won't be able to retire ever and all that. There is time, and it can be done. Obviously you are, you spent a lot of time and effort, and you were dedicated, and you had a plan.
Yeah.
So if somebody has a plan, it is very feasible for them to do,
very possible.
to do this, right? And they don't have to take it the same level that you did. I mean, you take it very, very big. You're helping, hundreds of people. So if you just want to do it a little smaller, you'll be fine.
The goal should be, I started out very modest. My first goal was, can I cover my car payment?
Yeah.
And then when I was able to cover my car payment, it was like, can I cover my rent or mortgage, right? Yeah. So then it was like, okay, can I hit that number? And sure enough, I hit that number. Yeah. And it was like, can I hit my, whatever I'm making in my W-2, can I get to 50% of that?
Yeah.
And then sure enough, you get to 50. So it wasn't like overwhelming, right? Yeah. It was, so like you said, it's 10 years, not a long time. People that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, they can start now.
Yeah.
And by the time they retire, they're set.
Yeah.
But I encourage everybody to sort of become engaged, become aware, get educated, listen to Eric, try out some of their properties.
Yeah.
What the experience is like.
Bobby's Meetup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the other thing too that I find interesting about the Meetup, there's a lot of different, and it's good and bad, right? I mean, there are all these different point of views and different ways of investing in the real estate. And if you're new and you don't really know where you want to go, and you don't have a plan together, you might think, oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do this now, or maybe this is better, and you end up not doing anything.
Or you don't do anything well. You do a bunch of stuff, but you don't do anything well.
Yeah. Or you just say, oh no, but you change your mind consistently. So I think it's good to, listen to Bobby, or maybe spend some time with Bobby, or contact me, and then you kind of get started small. I mean, you can start with a couple of single, like turnkey rentals, get that going. And then if you like the landlord, you can keep going in that direction. And then you can start diversifying a little bit and go maybe do something else. But get started in, and maybe that's not the starting point. Maybe PML is the starting point. But you know what I mean. So it's important to start somewhere.
Start somewhere.
And then you can branch out if you want.
Yeah.
But focus on your resources, the resources that you have, to determine kind of like what your plan is and where you want to go.
Exactly.
I think that's good. But yeah, because we have some people like that. They're just like there's so many opportunities, so many different ways to invest in the real estate. It's kind of confusing, and if you don't have your requirement in place, then it could be distracting.
Absolutely.
Focusing.
Yeah. No, focus at first. Get really dialed in, and then just repeat.
Yeah.
Just rinse and repeat.
Yeah. So I think that's a very good strategy. And the same for us too. I mean, we started in single family rentals, then we converted that into like a turnkey rental business. And now we're doing multifamily. And then, so I think we're going to pull people, investors with us if they're interested in
Absolutely.
these other markets and all of that. So, and
Absolutely.
I think you're doing exactly the same with your properties and your syndication and stuff like that. So that's very good. So if they want to know more about your syndication and the opportunities that you offer, where should they go?
The easiest way to go is to go to Bayflip. So
Okay.
www.bayflip.com. So bayflip.com.
Yeah.
Or shoot me an email at bobby@bayflip.com. That's where they can find me. But I'm on Facebook. I'm on Bigger Pockets. I'm on most
I'll
of
add it as well as a note on YouTube as well. So that's fine.
very easy to find me.
So that's good. So we're almost out of time. And so I want to ask you a couple of things. So any kind of like saying, proverb, or philosophy that you live by? So this is kind of like my quick round questions.
Okay. The philosophy that I live by is, just do unto others as you would want them to do to you. The- you know, the, uh, I always say, like, treat people fairly,
Mhm.
be open, be honest, because that's what you'd want other people to do with you.
Yeah.
Um, the other one is, live simple. Life can get a little complicated at times. My philosophy is reduce your debt.
Yeah.
uh, and one of the things is, if you don't live in debt, I call that the anchor, the boat anchor, right? It's always pulling you down. There's good debt and then there's bad debt.
Yeah.
Understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, and use good debt to get ahead, pay off the bad debt.
Yeah.
So but yeah, those are sort of my core philosophies. But
Yeah.
um,
Top books. What are favorite book
my
recommendations?
favorite, one of the ones that really changed my outlook was I'll name two. One is Stephen Covey's How to Make Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
I read that a long time ago, and I just realized, look, we live in a world where things are based on uh, trust, and whether people like you, or whether they trust you, and whether you're competent. So basically, it's about, that helped me kind of just build a nice network of friends and investors who really trust me, and I counsel with them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they run into problems, so I'll sit down, I'll help them. But that was one of the first books that influenced me. The second one, obviously, which is everybody's favorite, is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have all read that one. But
Mm-hmm.
but uh, but those are the two that in the business world that have helped me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I think earlier, like when you were talking about kind of like, oh, I'm gonna do some investment to pay off my car, see if I can make and pay off the my car. I mean, this is typically like this is a real rich dad, poor dad
Yeah,
kind of situation. So that was very good.
yeah.
Okay, so that sounds good. Any famous last words, things you want to say?
No, thank you, Eric. I really cherish our friendship
Mhm.
and our partnership, and of course the kids and the family. But let's do nicer, bigger things in
Yeah,
2020. Let's do some big projects, and bring a bunch of our friends along with us.
absolutely. Thank you very much, Bobby. Really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your experience. And of course, going to your meetups. I think it's you can see you and really learn a lot about real estate investment and all of that. And you're very trustworthy, and and you're really there to share your experience and help people. I mean, I can really feel that when, and I think everybody can feel that when they talk to you, that you're genuinely trying to help people achieve, passive income and financial freedom. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, right. Take care. Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.